The world was caught off guard when breaking news emerged that Ibrahim Traoré, the young leader of Burkina Faso, had issued a shocking 72-hour ultimatum that effectively blocked former U.S. President Donald Trump's alleged maneuver to secure Africa's gold. What began as whispers of a discreet gold acquisition attempt spiraled into a full-blown diplomatic storm that pitted one of Africa's most outspoken leaders against one of America's most recognizable figures. But the story did not end with the ultimatum alone. What stunned global audiences was the revelation of the secret behind this confrontation, a secret that exposed far more than just a transaction over precious metal. It was a story about power, sovereignty, and the ongoing struggle between the global South and entrenched Western interests. Africa's relationship with its gold has always been complicated, tied deeply to its history of exploitation. From the colonial era, when European empires looted gold and other resources from African lands, to the modern-day dominance of multinational corporations and foreign-owned mines, gold has never fully belonged to the African people. Despite being one of the richest continents in terms of mineral wealth, Africa has remained one of the poorest in terms of development and financial independence. The reason is simple. For decades, the value of these resources has flowed outward, enriching foreign investors, banks, and governments, while leaving behind fragile economies dependent on loans, aid, or unfair trade terms. It is against this historical backdrop that Ibrahim Traoré rose to power, vowing to change the script and return Africa's resources to Africans. Donald Trump's involvement in the African gold story added another dramatic layer. Known for his aggressive business instincts and unorthodox political style, Trump has long viewed Africa not only as a political arena, but also as an economic frontier rich with opportunity. During his presidency, analysts often noted his administration's focus on countering Chinese influence in Africa and securing resources for America's economic advantage. After leaving office, reports surfaced that Trump had been building networks of influence with African elites and business interests, with gold often at the center of these negotiations. For Trump, Africa's gold represented both a hedge against global financial instability and a way to reassert America's dominance in a multipolar world. When rumors began circulating that Trump and his allies were preparing to strike a massive deal that would give them control over vast reserves of African gold, Traoré acted decisively. He issued his 72-hour ultimatum, effectively warning that any attempt to bypass African sovereignty in pursuit of gold would be met with immediate consequences. He accused Western figures of trying to repeat the mistakes of colonial exploitation under a new guise, and vowed that Burkina Faso would not allow itself to become a pawn in someone else's financial empire. His words carried weight not only in his own country but across Africa, where people saw in him a voice willing to confront powerful figures head-on. The secret that Traoré revealed during this confrontation was explosive. He disclosed that much of Africa's gold was already being siphoned off through shadowy channels involving corrupt elites, offshore accounts, and covert deals facilitated by international financial networks. According to his claims, the push by Trump and other Western interests was not about new opportunities, but about tightening control over a system that already drained Africa of its wealth. He argued that Africa was being robbed in plain sight, not only of its gold, but of its future, as billions of dollars in revenue that could fund infrastructure, healthcare, and education were instead disappearing into foreign vaults. What made Traoré's ultimatum remarkable was not just its defiance, but its timing. By giving a 72-hour window, he created a sense of urgency that forced the world to pay attention. Media outlets rushed to cover the unfolding drama, and governments scrambled to understand the implications. Was he threatening to nationalize gold mines? Was he planning to expel foreign companies? Or was this a symbolic gesture designed to rally Africans behind his vision of sovereignty? The ambiguity only added to the intrigue, ensuring that his words dominated headlines. Inside Africa, the response was overwhelmingly supportive. Citizens in Burkina Faso and beyond praised Traoré for standing up to one of the most powerful figures in the world. On social media, hashtags calling for Africa's gold to remain in Africa trended across multiple countries. Pan-Africanists hailed the ultimatum as a defining moment, likening it to the speeches of Thomas Sankara, Kwame Nkrumah, and other leaders who had dared to confront imperial powers. Many saw in Traoré's actions a glimpse of what a united Africa could look like: strong, assertive, and unwilling to be bullied into submission. In the West, however, the reaction was mixed. Some dismissed Traoré's claims as exaggerated rhetoric designed to boost his popularity. Others worried that his boldness could inspire copycat moves across the continent, threatening Western access to strategic minerals and resources. For Trump and his allies, the confrontation was a political headache, raising questions about whether their dealings in Africa were above board or whether they risked being painted as neo-colonial adventurers. The exposure of secret gold dealings, even if not fully substantiated, was enough to cast a shadow over their efforts. The deeper significance of Traoré's ultimatum lay in its exposure of the global financial system's dependence on Africa's resources. Gold has always been a cornerstone of wealth and stability, from ancient civilizations to modern central banks. In times of economic uncertainty, gold becomes even more important as a safe haven asset. By challenging the way Africa's gold is managed and demanding that it serve African interests first, Traoré was not just protecting Burkina Faso, but was also questioning the very foundations of the international monetary order. If Africa were to withhold its gold from global markets or insist on new terms, the ripple effects could destabilize currencies, shift investment flows, and even undermine Western economies. This was the secret that shook the world. Africa's gold was not just a regional issue, but a global one. The continent's untapped wealth was a hidden pillar of global financial stability, and any disruption to that system could change the balance of power. Traoré's ultimatum, therefore, was not only a political statement, but a strategic move with far-reaching consequences. It was a warning that Africa would no longer be content to play a subordinate role in the global economy, and that attempts to exploit it would be met with resistance. The 72-hour deadline passed without escalation into open conflict, but the symbolic victory was clear. Trump's push for gold was halted, at least temporarily, and Traoré emerged as a hero in the eyes of many Africans. The confrontation revealed the fragility of Western control over African resources and demonstrated that determined leadership could disrupt even the most powerful actors. It also marked a new chapter in the ongoing struggle for Africa's liberation, showing that the continent's leaders could set the terms of engagement rather than merely react to external pressures. In the months that followed, the debate over Africa's gold only intensified. Some African governments began revisiting their mining contracts, demanding fairer terms and greater local ownership. Regional bodies discussed the possibility of creating an African gold reserve to back a future common currency, reducing dependence on the dollar and euro. Activists pushed for transparency, calling for investigations into the shadow networks Traoré had exposed. And throughout it all, Traoré continued to speak out, insisting that Africa's future depended on reclaiming control over its wealth. Globally, analysts began to view him as more than just a young revolutionary. He was seen as part of a broader movement reshaping the global South, alongside leaders in Latin America, Asia, and the Middle East, who were challenging Western dominance and building new alliances. His 72-hour ultimatum became a symbol of defiance, proof that even a small nation like Burkina Faso could stand up to giants and be heard. This confrontation with Trump also underscored the growing multipolarity of the world. In the past, a move by the CIA, a U.S. president, or Western corporations might have been enough to silence opposition. But today, Africa has options. Partnerships with China, Russia, Turkey, and others provide alternatives that allow African leaders to resist Western pressure. Traoré's ultimatum, therefore, was not an isolated act of courage, but part of a larger shift in global power dynamics where Africa is no longer a passive actor, but an active participant shaping the rules. As the dust settled, one thing became clear: the 72-hour ultimatum had changed the conversation. It was no longer possible to discuss Africa's gold without acknowledging African voices. No longer could Western leaders assume quiet compliance in the face of exploitation. The secret Traoré had exposed of gold siphoned through shadowy deals and the global system's dependence on African wealth was now out in the open, and it could not easily be ignored. For many Africans, the message was simple and powerful. This was not just about one man or one country. It was about a continent waking up to its power and demanding respect. Traoré had shown that Africa's destiny could be written in Africa, not dictated from outside. His ultimatum was a reminder that sovereignty is not just a word, but a responsibility, and that leadership means daring to confront even the most powerful when justice is at stake. The legacy of this episode will endure. Whether it sparks a wave of reforms or becomes a turning point in Africa's economic history remains to be seen. But one fact is undeniable. By standing firm against Trump's push for gold and exposing the secret behind it, Ibrahim Traoré cemented his place as one of the defining voices of Africa's new generation of leaders. His defiance echoed across the world, a declaration that Africa will no longer be silent, no longer be exploited, and no longer be ignored.